Picture a young Latina girl growing up in the Bronx in the 1970s and 80s. She spends a lot of time watching TV because being outdoors is not very safe. What she watches on TV is very different from what she witnesses in her daily life. She watches mostly people with privilege and education, money, good looks, and a nice place to live. She hardly sees any people of color, and if she does, they're not the most positive role models. That little girl was me. TV was my escape. Back in my day, we had these big, boxy TVs with rabbit antenna ears that didn't really work. So as any ingenious poor person, we DIY'd it with wire hangers and aluminum foil. At the time, the it girl was Brooke Shields, who became famous on Calvin Klein jeans commercials, touting lines like, "Nobody gets between me and my Calvins." Oh, I wanted to be on TV like her. I wanted to be a model and actress too. But that didn't seem like an option for me. I was brown, Latina, on welfare, and from the hood. On TV, I saw people living in beautiful homes, tree-lined streets, grassy backyards. They didn't look like me, dress like me, eat like me, talk like me. The comparison made me painfully aware that I was the other. Being the other, or what I like to call otherness, is that thing that makes you feel different from the majority. That thing that makes you feel like you're on the outside looking in. That thing that makes you feel less than. So take a moment and ask yourself, when have I felt othered? We all have otherness. Some of us come from other countries. Maybe you're the other because you have learning challenges. Maybe you're the only woman, person of color, gay person, fill in the blank in the room. My otherness was that I was Latina, brown, and from the hood. But deep down inside, I knew there was more to me than that. A part of me knew that I could take the reins of my life and not settle for what my immediate surroundings were. At the very least, I knew that I had to try and fight for something better instead of just letting things happen to me or being a victim of circumstance. I believe if we embrace our otherness, we can find a strength that we never knew we had. If we own our otherness instead of rejecting it, we can build up our self-confidence and learn to love ourselves. We can let the challenges of our otherness strengthen us and use it to fuel us toward a better life. What I used to think were strikes against me, being brown, Latina, and from the Bronx, were actually helping me. Those challenges made me strong, and I ended up here. I'm an award-winning actress, published author, speaker, but what I'm most proud of is that I'm the mother to two pretty awesome kids. It took a while for me to get here, but it all started with a bad boyfriend. I was 14 years old when I met Marco, a rebel tough guy with a leather motorcycle jacket. Oh, I was in love. However, Marco wasn't into school, which then meant I wasn't either. As time went on, Marco became physically abusive, and I tolerated it for a good while. Finally, after several challenging moments with him, the light bulb went on in my teenage brain, and I realized he was going nowhere fast, and I didn't want to go with him. I wanted a good future. I wanted to do something with myself. So I took the brave step to break up with Marco. That's when my life changed for the better. I refocused on school, eventually graduating, and I even made it to college. It was in college where I discovered my first real true love, acting. I decided I was going to major in theater and become an actor. I knew the odds were stacked against me, but I said, I may be the other and not fit the mold of the successful actors that I see on television and film, but I am going to take a bet on Andrea Navedo. By owning my otherness, I decided to pick myself, throw my hat in the ring and say, I am here, I exist, and I have value. 4 years later, I graduated and embarked on my career. Oh, it took years to make my way. Part-time jobs, headshots and resumes, acting classes, audition after audition, booking a job here or there, to finally, in 1995, booking the long-time running popular soap opera, One Life to Live. Oh, Lordy, I was so excited and pleasantly surprised because the role was a nice girl role, the girl next door. I went into the wardrobe fitting on Cloud 9. There, they had me try on various items: combat boots, a miniskirt, a midriff top, and finally, gold bamboo hoop earrings. I was confused and said, these clothes don't seem to fit the character that I auditioned for. The wardrobe woman replied, oh no, that's not the role you auditioned for. They didn't have any dialogue for your character yet, so they gave you a scene from an episode that's already aired. You're playing the girlfriend of the gang leader. My heart sank. What? The girlfriend of the gang leader? I had finally booked my first big TV role. Is this the only kind of role they think I'm good for? Should I turn it down? Will I be part of perpetuating a negative stereotype? However, it was a foot in the door, and I needed to pay the rent and health insurance, so I decided to do it, even though it hurt, and continued to pursue my career, building up my resume over the years. Fast forward to 2018, and I am working on the Golden Globe nominated hit series, Jane the Virgin, as Jane's mom. Thank you. Thank you. As Jane's mom, Xiomara. The series centers on a Latina family that is hardworking, smart, loving, with hopes and with dreams, not a gang member in sight. Because of the show's success, I was invited to give the commencement speech at my high school alma mater, DeWitt Clinton in the Bronx. I was so excited to have the opportunity to return 30 years later and send a message to the kids there, knowing that many of them were fans of the show. I wanted them to know what I needed to know when I was their age. That being the other, growing up in the hood, being a person of color, or just being different was not a strike against them, but the very thing that could be their secret weapon. After delivering that speech, many students came up to thank me. One of them in particular stood out. She was a young Latina graduating that day. With tears in her eyes, she thanked me for sharing my shame and embarrassment that it had taken me 5 years to graduate high school, but how I turned it around and realized that the most important thing was that I graduated. She said that it took her 5 years to graduate as well. She was encouraged by the fact that we had that in common, and I still came out winning. That young lady and my speech was a springboard for me. I wanted to encourage many more like her. That's when I realized that being the other was more than a label or scarlet letter. It was something to be proud of, something to embrace, and was actually my superpower. As someone who has spent her career pretending to be someone else. Here are 5 truths that have empowered me and given me the greatest role of my life. Me. I hope they empower you too. 1, the reins of your life. I said to myself, Andrea, stop being a bystander in your life. Start today by taking 100% responsibility for every situation, circumstance, and thing that has happened to you and will happen in your life. If you don't like what you see, what are you going to do about it, Andrea? Really, what are you going to do? You have to have these honest discussions with yourself every once in a while. If you're in a situation or circumstance that you're not happy with, you got to ask yourself a very important question. Who or what am I blaming for my problems? My parents? The government? My neighborhood? My race? Then take 100% responsibility for making it better, no matter who's to blame. 2, decide what you want and take action. I wanted a good future. I wanted to go to college. So I broke up with my going nowhere boyfriend and refocused on school. Later, I wanted to love and heal myself from the abuse I experienced and witnessed as a child. So I put myself in therapy. Later, I wanted to become a successful actor and to represent others like me, so I kept doing the things to make that happen. 3, be the author of your story. Let me ask you this. What kind of story do you want to tell at the end of your life? The truth is, we all have otherness. And the reality is that no one is coming to save us from the challenges of our otherness. And why should they? It's our journey and our story to tell, so let's tell a good one. 4, claim your identity. Even though I was born and growing up in the US, I didn't feel 100% American. And I knew that I was of Puerto Rican heritage, but I didn't feel that I was that either. Woo! Puerto Rico, ho! Puerto Rico to me was some faraway island in the Caribbean where they spoke Spanish. But when I was 11 years old, my parents scraped up the pennies to send me there to spend the summer with my grandmother. It was in Puerto Rico where I learned about my African, indigenous, and Spanish roots, helping me to feel a sense of belonging and finally a clearer sense of identity. So I encourage you to find out what makes you you and claim your identity. 5, my favorite. Sometimes you gotta go Bronx. Being from the Bronx was not something to be proud of. I was expected to fail, get into drugs, to become a teen mom, to be a statistic. But now I am proud to say that I am from the Bronx. It has taught me how to survive, how to speak up for myself and draw a boundary. It made me hungry, determined, and tenacious, the very qualities I needed to pursue a very challenging career. Finally, I will leave you with this part of my story. I was 9 years old when I first watched Brooke Shields on my aluminum foil antenna TV. I knew there was more for me, but I didn't know how far I'd go. In 2019, on season 5 of Jane the Virgin, I learned that we had a special guest star who was coming to play my nemesis, Brooke Shields. In that moment, I became aware of how far I had come. My life had come full circle and in the most beautiful of ways. It was a dream come true. And now here I am with a message to share. Embrace your otherness. Let it fuel you. Own every bit of who you are and what makes you you. It is your power. Our otherness is not an obstacle to be overcome. Our otherness is our strength. Thank you.